Good evening, Freddy Vazquez. This is Basement Politics Unfiltered. Good evening, folks. I am Freddy Vazquez, and this is Basement Politics Unfiltered. Happy Sunday, June 26, 2022. Let's talk about the state of the country and Yonkers, New York. Hey guys, how you doing? Oh, I knew there was some lights missing. Welcome, folks. I'm Freddy Vazquez. This is Basement Politics Unfiltered. Tonight, I want to talk about the state of the country in Yonkers. It's a lot happening here in the city and in the country. I left my pad upstairs. Oh, well. Anyway, I wanted to talk about the state of the country and the city of Yonkers and the impact of the state of the country and how it's affecting Yonkers, right? A lot of things that people currently are not really speaking of, like our economy, right? That's a big, huge thing. Right now, it's Roe versus Wade. And by the way, I knew that I spelled Roe wrong. No, actually, I didn't. Put a D. Accidentally, but I did correct it. Thank you for telling me. But before I get into that, I do want to talk about the Yonkers car show put on by the Yonkers Rotary Club and the city of Yonkers. It was very successful. A lot of people attended, a lot of beautiful cars, beautiful weather. The sun was out. So shout out to the Yonkers Rotary Club and the city of Yonkers for putting that on over at Cross County. If you didn't get to go, I hope that they'll do it next year or another one at some point. And you should attend. It was pretty cool. So I was there. So I wanted just to say that was a positive thing today. And then also, I want to just mention one thing, folks. I'm saying this again. When you move into a community, the music. Have some consideration for your neighbors, folks. Okay, I'm talking to everyone in the city of Yonkers. Right, got some new neighbors that moved in. They like to party a lot, and they've been having the music blasting. And, I'm okay with having a good time just after 8 o'clock on a Sunday. If you're like 4 houses down, and I can still hear it, I think that's a bit excessive. Just please. All right. And that's something I want to talk about. I was mentioning with my wife, and I just want to mention real quick, sometimes, I have family come over when, I have houses wherever. And, sometimes some of them, they're, from the hood and from the streets. And so, I had to teach them, guys, you can't do these things here, man. This is a different area. You know what I'm saying? So, so sometimes people have to learn, there's some kind of etiquettes and some kind of considerations, sometimes you have to have in certain areas, don't want them thinking that we're all crazy, Latinos. And every time that we move in, there goes the neighborhood, right? We don't want to give them that impression. Okay. So we have to have certain etiquettes, when we move into a certain community. It's a peaceful, quiet. We move away to get away from that, right? I moved away to get away from the noise and the craziness and all that. So don't bring that with you. You got to leave that baggage behind, because then we all get judged, So I had to kind of explain that to some of my family members, because one of them kept feeding the neighbor's dog, Penny. You can't do that. And then the neighbor came over and said, please, can you not feed I'm sorry. And then she would still do it, sneaking the penin to the dog. Don't do that. I don't want the dog to die in my yard, then I'm going to get blamed for that. And she just wouldn't listen, my aunt. So, got to have some kind of etiquette, you know what I mean? Certain things like slow down in the neighborhood, And with the music, I like to bump my music sometimes in the car. But when I get into my neighborhood, I do turn it down, so I be careful with that and stuff. So, just wanted to put that out there because some of my neighbors, I think the music stopped. I don't think I hear it. They were bumping. I mean, some serious bachata, you know what I mean? Come on, or bachata, or whatever you call it. And I'm trying to be in my yard, and I hear the bachata music, and then coño, 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 and I'm just like, yeah, good thing my kids don't know Spanish. I don't want to hear coños. And these are three, 4 houses down. That's what I'm 3, 4 houses down, and I could only imagine the neighbors that are directly next to them, and they're probably scared to say something. They probably do not want to ruffle any feathers. Okay, but just guys, my Latinos, I love you, and I'm glad that, we're moving up and we are moving up. We're making progress, buying homes and stuff. That's a big accomplishment. That's a great achievement. Many of us, we didn't grow up in houses and backyards and stuff. I know I didn't. I grew up in a tenement building, so it's awesome, but we got to also progress in our behavior as well sometimes, so because I know my family loved the loud music. Forget it. The neighbors, the apartments, we will be bumping the music at the parties, so but just not here. All right, guys, thank you. Anyway, moving on. The economy, folks, I don't know if many of you noticed, but we're heading for some serious trouble. Economists are saying that America doesn't produce anything but bubbles. We have a real estate bubble, a stock market bubble, right? We have a student loan bubble, they say. So we have to focus on this because lately it seems like our country is being divided by ideologies, and that seems to be the main focus. I'm getting a lot of people, upset with me because of what I may be saying about Roe versus Wade, and I'm not against it. I'm not in support of taking away anyone's right, as long as it doesn't infringe on the right of others. That's all I say. I don't agree with it, having an abortion, but that's not my business, and it's your right. But what I do say is that why don't we, as much as we, fight for the right to have an abortion or to give women the right to have an abortion, do we not, encourage people to maybe wait to a time when they are prepared to raise a child? And I understand there are unique circumstances, right? People maybe have raped, or there may be a situation where the mother could die during labor. And I get that. So I'm not saying that there aren't unique circumstances, but based on statistics, because people like to, say a lot of things out of emotion and opinion and assumption. But let's go to statistics. And as I mentioned in my last podcast, statistically, the majority of women having abortions are between the ages of 19, 25, and they've had at least one abortion. At least one or more abortion. That's a statistical fact. So what that tells me is that people are just making mistakes. All right. And I'm not judging. I'm just saying that if we understand that fact, then maybe we should also work to, right, promote solutions that help to reduce the need for abortions as well. Let's also focus on that. 30% of the women having abortions in the country are Black women. However, they make up 13% of the total population. And that's a fact that I think we should all be concerned with, specifically the Black community, but all of us. 30% are Black women. So what does that say about, the community where the Black women are coming from? Is there something that we need to do there and address in those communities to change that statistic? Why is it that they're having such large numbers of abortion? And again, that's what I'm saying. All I'm saying to people, and I don't want to offend anyone, that's never my intention, but I'm saying that I would love to see more, solutions that encourage the reduction of the need for abortions. Maybe encouraging people to wait, maybe not to engage in sex until they are prepared to raise a child if they get pregnant, and that's okay. We don't need to be having sex all the time. Let's promote marriage. Try to wait till you get married. I get it. That's not easy, right? But let's promote these type of ideas just as much as we passionately promote the right to women to have an abortion, which I'm not against, because it is not my decision. It is not my business. However, I have a personal story with abortion because I almost was aborted, because women have the right here in the state of New York to have abortion. That was almost my destiny, I guess. Unfortunately, or I say fortunately, not unfortunately, but fortunately, my father, and I don't blame my mother. I'm not mad at her. I understand the circumstances that she was in and why that option would even be considered. But like I said to somebody that I was going back and forth with in a debate, thank God that she did not make that decision. Thank God my father was there to see her, or help her see things differently. And here I am. I have a beautiful life. I have beautiful kids. My kids wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be doing the things that I'm doing. That's so great and amazing. right? So I'm just saying that let's maybe consider the possibility, even if you're in a situation that maybe you think that you can't raise that child because it will be difficult. You never know. God may have given you that gift for a reason, right? And I think in my mom's case, he gave her a gift, you know? So that's why I say that I'm against it, because you never know what the child may become. But again, I know that there are unique circumstances. I understand that. And again, I don't judge, and it's everyone's right to make that decision for themselves. And they're not to be judged. But we should also not allow it to be used as a contraceptive, something that you can just turn to if you make a mistake, or you made another mistake and a third mistake. What does that do to our society? What does that say about our society? And do any of you know, maybe some, I just learned that the woman who was Roe was a pseudonym, or, for Norma McCorvey, the Texas woman who uh, Roe versus Wade happened because of, well, technically it was because of the two lawyers who were looking to change the Texas abortion laws, who saw an opportunity in Roe or Norma, and they used her because she really didn't want to even pursue it, but she was paid to do it. And then in the 90s, she actually came out and said that she lied about being raped, because initially she had said she was raped. And this was on her third pregnancy. She already had two pregnancies before, but on the third one, she said she was raped. Two attorneys from Texas then took her and created this case that we now know as Roe versus Wade. Right. And then in the 90s, 1995, she came out and said that she lied about being raped, and she was a born again Christian and started to oppose abortion. And then eventually she would later say that she was paid to do that, and that that was not how she felt. And really that she didn't care either way. To quote her, she said it was no skin off her ass if a woman got abortion or not. I just thought that that was some interesting facts. And she ended up having the third child. She never actually got an abortion. I don't know if any, people know that, or how many people know that, but I just learned that today, and I thought that was interesting. This whole Roe versus Wade is because of her. She never got an abortion. Thought that was very interesting. But anyway, you can see that in a documentary that she did back in the 90s. They talk about it, and she comes out and says she, lied about being raped. Then she, went back and said, I'm a born again Christian. I'm against abortion. But then she turned around and said, well, I was paid to say that, and that I really don't care. So, I just believe in educating ourselves and learning all the facts about things, before you, just make any comments, or, make any opinion on anything, and always be fair and always be in the middle. Right. So I want to go back to the state of our economy, because economists are saying that we are only producing bubbles. That is all this country produces: real estate bubble, stock market bubble, right? And we're talking about Roe versus Wade. We're talking about gun control. We're talking about transgender debate. A lot of these, topics that really pit people against each other, when we, should be concerned with the way our economy, or where our economy is headed. Because many are saying it's going to be a big, downturn. It could be worse than the Great Depression, right? So, real estate bubble. Why are they saying that? Well, because a lot of the a lot of the real estate now is overpriced. Properties are overpriced. Property prices continue to soar, yet the average person, is not the ones buying homes. Right? A lot of property are being bought up by investors, large institutional investors, trust funds, overseas investors from China, from Israel, and they're buying property here in the United States, and other investors, wealthy investors here in the United States, to park their money because they're expecting a crash. Right? And the stock market is not a safe place to put your money when you're expecting the economy to crash. So there's a stock market bubble as well. Stock are overpriced. Many of these companies are overvalued. what's going on here. So all that is going to bust. All that is going to burst. You have student loan bubbles. Our economy is going to crash. The dollar is losing value. Prices are soaring. We have inflation. The Fed just increased interest rates in order to try to curb the inflation, bring it down a bit. And when the Fed does that, and I mean the Federal Reserve, they raise interest rates, and the idea is so that they can start to pull money out of the economy, and that should hopefully start to bring some prices down. Right? That's the idea. Well, that's all because of the pandemic, and the government was just pumping a lot of money, printing money, putting money out there, printing money. And what that does is begins to devalue the money. Prices of cost of goods and services start to increase. And that's what we see now with gas, food, and other services, other goods. But we're not really paying attention to that. Everybody's fighting each other over Roe versus Wade. Here in New York, why are you worried about it? If you live in New York, you have no reason to be concerned. New York hasn't banned abortions, right? So we're not talking about what's important. We're talking about white nationalists, BLM, January 6th, Donald Trump. People are still talking about Donald Trump. The man is not president anymore, yet people continue to mention him. And I just think that we're not focused on what's actually going to impact us all. The increasing homelessness rate. Are many people aware of that? A lot of people losing their homes, families out in the street, living in cars now. I mean, you're starting to see it in Yonkers. Just this morning, I walked by a guy, again, the same guy on Warburton and Ashburton that's been living there in that corner now for at least 2 weeks. He literally lives there. That's his house. Okay, that corner, that's his home. He has his belongings there. He sleeps there. And I guess depending on where the sun is, he's changed his size. And he's been there 2 weeks. And this is starting to increase throughout the city. More and more people are panhandling. I see it all around. I was at Delgado's, a woman walking by asking for money for food. I literally didn't have any cash. I was using a card. So then she offers me change to buy a cigarette. I said, well, don't you want to eat? Why would you give up your money for a cigarette? Right? And she just looked in really bad condition. So we're not focusing on what's truly important. We're focusing on all these issues that are ideologies, right? People are so passionate about it, and it's causing us to be so divided, and it's very divisive. And I think that's the point. People are insulting each other again. It's like the pandemic and the vaccine all over again. And I think they just want to keep us fighting each other because they don't want us to think about what's truly important. We're engaging in a proxy war with Russia. A proxy war, meaning we're just sending military equipment, weapons, and billions of dollars that this country doesn't even have to the Ukraine. Ultimately, Russia is going to say, you guys might as well send soldiers too, because we're going to go to war, and it's going to be World War III. And are you folks ready to send your daughters and sons off to war? Does anybody care about that? And I just think that it's a bit crazy what's going on and what we're actually putting our attention to, right? What we're really focusing on. The ruling on Friday by the Supreme Court was a step backwards for all women in this country. I guess. I mean, I don't see how. I just don't see how. It's not in every state, right? And so I guess in Texas, and if people truly feel that way in Texas, then they need to vote out their elected officials. They need to vote people who are going to be pro-abortion in Texas. And this is why I constantly say it's important to get involved. You can't scream about it, cry about it, but you're not getting involved. You don't actually know what's going on. And I'm not referring to you specifically, Will. I'm just saying in general, right? So if they really feel like that in Texas, they feel like you because you're in New York, so you're good, right? There's no issues with you in New York. But if you're in Texas and you really feel like that, and that's the majority of the people, then get together and vote the people out. I'm not against it. So I don't care. I'm just saying that's what you need to do, is what I'm saying. Right? She lied and was paid. Yes, she lied and she was paid about being raped. She was paid to also bring the case to the Supreme Court. It was a money-making thing for her all the way. And I just think that that's important to know. However you feel about it, whether it changes how you feel or not, that's not my goal. I'm just telling you that's a fact. It's a fact. She was also never gang raped. Right. She said she lied about being gang raped. Right. It's all about supply and demand. And you're referring to gas, oil. I'm not sure specifically. Yeah. But is it artificial? So, the Federal Reserve will have no choice but to raise interest rates many more times over the next 2 years in order to get inflation in check. You're correct. It could take 3 or more to bring supply and demand somewhere close to equilibrium. Yeah. But my question is that supply and demand, is it really real? Is it real or is it artificial? Right. For example, like in the housing, right, in real estate, the prices are going up. Right. But is there, there's a high demand, but from who? Right. So you have a lot of these big investors, trust banks that have gotten together that are gobbling up properties. It's not the average person. So they're raising the rents. The cost of a home because of that reason for them, because they're buying it up. Right. And they're overpaying. They're overpaying. They're willing to overpay for property. That's happening here in Yonkers, depending on the property and the transaction, whatever. But they have investors coming out here willing to pay more than market price because they're looking for real investments to park their money, because they're not going to put it in the stock market. Tangible assets, real estate. There's always going to be a need for housing. People are always going to have to pay rent. And if you have the government now giving universal income, or universal UBI, the universal basic income to people, these institutional investors, these big money investors, wealthy investors know that they're going to get their money from the government, from the taxpayer. So you're going to have a class of people that are going to work, right? And they're going to produce taxes, in which case that tax money is then going to go back to a certain group of people that can't afford to pay rent. And then you got these investors, they're going to make that money from the government, right? So that's why they're gobbling up. So the price is being jacked up artificially, I'm saying, because they're not, it's not really real. It's not really average people buying homes like that. Our snowflake military doesn't stand a chance against you. I don't know about that. I really don't know about that. You know what I do think, though, if our country is in the condition that it's in, right? We're so divided, as they say, a house divided cannot stand. Sure. Then any country, any strong country, Russia, China, and they're doing that. Russia and China have been getting together. They don't need us. You see how they're now growing up their own economy between each other. Russia doesn't care. Go ahead, put the sanctions, Biden. Why do you think that Biden does this every time? Putin does this every time Biden's in office, right? What happened the last time Biden was vice president? He was in the White House with Obama. Remember Crimea? And then he waited. Trump was there. Trump was, not a supporting friend, whatever they were doing. But then the minute Biden went in, then he goes into the Ukraine because he knows he's soft and he's got a lot of stuff on him. He's compromised. Biden is compromised, right? And that's the unfortunate thing. So, whatever you think about Trump or whatever, Biden's no better. And not that I care about Trump, but both should be thrown out. And we need to start anew, I think, if you ask me. Increased mortgage rates will eventually make home ownership too expensive. Right, exactly. That's what I'm saying. The developers are smart and forward thinking. That's why they're building rental buildings. Exactly. Exactly right. So what we're doing is what's happening is that they're going into this new economy where it's really a renter-based economy, right? And that's why I've bought property also. And I'm saying this to my wife, I wish I had bought more. All right. And out of state, I do stuff out of state. And so they want people to rent. They don't want people to really own homes anymore. And the whole idea of building senior living is to get seniors who own homes out of their homes and into senior living so they can buy them up, right? So that's what the idea is. And then they'll use taxpayer money to build the senior living, right? Isn't that a great thing? So that's why you hear certain elected officials promoting that senior housing, and, you could sell your homes and, for seniors who want to downsize, right? Why seniors they don't want to downsize. What if they want to give that to their, family or whatever, So, but they want to encourage seniors to sell their homes and stuff like that because these guys are buying up everything. They want people to become renters. It's all part of the Great Reset, whether you think that's a conspiracy theory or not. All you have to do is see who's behind it, who supports the Great Reset. You have Prince Charles, Joe Biden, Trudeau of Canada, Merkel of Germany, right? What's his name? Macron of France, right? They're all behind this Great Reset. With Klaus Schwab, that guy. And the thing about it that's scary is that a lot of these leaders that I mentioned all went through his training to his school. This guy's been around for a while, right? They all went through this World Economic Forum, whatever training. So they all pretty much kind of like little puppets of his that he put out there. He indoctrinated them into his way of thinking. And this is serious stuff that we're not talking about because we're busy fighting each other. Right, we're busy like, you are a Trump supporter, you support January 6th and whatever. You what? And the reality is that those are the people that we need to go see what's up because they're the ones screwing us. I mean, they were right. I mean, and who they went. I guess I don't know if you think their approach was right or not, but they took it to the right people. I mean, they didn't, destroy private property. People that had nothing to do with whatever, right? So, we need to focus on what's actually happening in this whole Great Reset that they're doing and why our economy is headed where it's headed, right? Why this whole supply chain crap is going on, right? So like I said, is it real or is it artificial, right? Are they purposely, squeezing this economy and purposely hurting the economy so it can crash, so they can start anew? I mean, this is what they want. They had a video. They had a whole, trailer of the Great Reset, how we're going to have to do everything different now. The pandemic, presented a great opportunity to change the way we do things. They want people to just be isolated. You got this guy, one of his advisors, saying that, people in the future are not going to need to see each other. They're not going to need to, be next to each other. No longer are families together. You have, moms in one, parents in one state, kids in another, the grandkids in another. And that's how they want us, all separated, all working, to produce whatever it is that they want produced to keep their economy going. So the few could be, wealthy and not have to work and spend all their time with their family and chilling in pools and mansions and stuff, right? That's not cool. That's what they want from us, right? Middle class won't be able to buy a house. Yes, it's really starting to happen. They will have to rent. Exactly. That's what they want, and that's what they're doing. And that's slowly been happening as you've been seeing this, widening of the wealth gap, right? And eventually, like I said, a lot is going to be rich and it's going to be poor. And that's why they're toying with the idea of universal income. When you're dependent, you're easier to control, right? Because eventually we're going to see it for what it really is. The big facade. Eventually the curtain is going to be pulled from the wizard, and we're going to see that we have been living under one big Ponzi scheme since at least 1973. But I believe even further back, if you go to the 30s, right? When we had the Great Depression, and then there was a Great Reset then. So it's not a conspiracy, right? What happened? And then you had the Fed, you had the meeting in Jekyll Island. How many of you know about that? Created the Fed, right? And then you went on, they took everybody's gold. They were taking everyone's gold. You had to turn in your gold. You can have a certain amount of gold. And then we went on the gold standard, supposedly. And then from the gold standard in the 70s, I believe it was Nixon, I forget who took us off that, to the fiat system where we are now, where it's just really paper money and there's no gold to back it. So it's really a Ponzi scheme. And that's why they have to keep printing money. But that's not going to keep, that could only, go for so long. So we at a point where it can't go anymore. As they say, as these guys up there, the rich elite are saying, the party's over. The fun and games is over. You can't print any more money. And that's why they're toying the idea of this digital currency. And for people who think that, Bitcoin is a decentralized currency and it's not controlled, that's BS. That's BS. You think some random guy you think they're going to, these intelligence agencies around the world, they're going to allow some guy to create this and not have no control over it? Come on. Don't be naive. Right? Don't be naive. It's most certainly controlled by the world elite and governments and stuff like that. And it's even more controlled than ever. They can just shut you down. No electricity, no Bitcoin. No internet, no Bitcoin. It's why they close the economy down and rent free. So it puts landlord in bankruptcy. Perfect. Absolutely. I'm glad, I love when people say things like that. It just makes me know that people are paying attention. In bankruptcy situation, got elites offering big bucks to buy out landlords, which many are selling here and then. Why kind of sounds like it was planned to me. Oh, most certainly. Most certainly. It most certainly was. That's great observation. Exactly right. And what she's saying is that the pandemic with the shutdown, what do you think that did? That hurt businesses, small businesses, because Amazon wasn't shut down, right? These big businesses weren't shut down. They hurt small businesses intentionally. They hurt landlords with the rent freeze because, again, as a landlord, right, we're not all freaking like Donald Trump type of landlords or whoever people envision that we're just some scumbag people and that it's okay to not pay rent. That affects us, right? Especially if you rely on that as a good chunk of your income, right? So that does affect us. And why should anyone just be living free, right? I mean, I didn't come from money. I didn't have nothing handed to me. I had to work. And I'm not saying that people don't have certain situations that, whatever, but, you have to bust your ass and you have to, do what you got to do. And, even if you have to struggle, you shouldn't, certain, because I've had tenants that they just don't care. And that's not okay. I can work with you, but when you just don't care, that's not okay. When you think you're just going to live rent free and you can get away with it because now they put these laws in place or whatever, or they, these things, that's not okay. That's taking advantage, and that's never okay, right? And then you do hurt people, and that's exactly what she's saying. So a lot of these landlords who own properties, they had to foreclose on their properties, right? They're not receiving rent. They can't pay their mortgages because they're not just, getting free houses here. There's mortgages, there's interest payments they have to make, there's taxes that they have to pay, right? And maintenance and other fees and all that's associated with owning that property. So when you're not receiving money from the tenant, that's going to affect you. And that happened. And a lot of people had to, sell their property. They're selling their properties. And guess who buys them up? The super, super rich bankers, right? These hedge funds and all that with the wealthy Black Rocks of the world, right? The State Streets of the world. Go that up. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go look it up. Go look it up. But that's a good observation. Very right. The great extraction, the greatest transfer of wealth, 1000%. Because what people don't realize is that when they pass these bills, right, the Congress says, oh, we're going to pass this spending bill to help the economy and help stimulate things and give money to the people. That's all BS. That doesn't trickle all the way down to us. You'd be lucky if you get a little $600 check, $1,200 check, and people are happy with that, though. That's the thing. People are happy with it. And that's why it continues to happen. But what's actually happened is that they're taking money from the taxpayers, right? People pay the people, the middle class pay the most of the taxes, right? Because about deductions and all that stuff, right? And then they're putting into these bills, billions of dollars, and then for these programs and this, that, and the third. And what happens is people with money wait for it. They know it's coming down the pipeline, so they start setting up businesses or organizations or whatever they have to do in order to qualify for that money. And then they got political friends and connections, and then they funnel the money to them. And it ends up just going into the pockets of wealthy people, whether it's through developments of affordable housing, developments of senior housing, crime prevention programs, or, education programs or whatever. It gets gobbled up. That's what people don't get. And then they wonder, what happened? We thought that, got to know what's going on. History is repeating itself 1000%. It does. You think those people in the 1600s built those beautiful architectural, greatnesses of cathedrals and all that with primitive tools? What about the pyramids? Yeah, believe that if you want. There was civilizations that were great before us. Just eventually we come to an end. What goes up must come down. All good things must come to an end. Nothing lasts forever. Everything recycles. 365, whatever, 360, whatever it is, it rounds in circle. You know what I'm saying? Everything comes full circle, right? It starts anew when you're born. You got to wear diapers and poop on yourself, and you have someone taking care of you. And just before you die, you're doing the same thing, pooping on yourself, having someone take care of you. That's how the world is. That's how life. That's the circle of life. So nothing's new under the sun. Revolutions have always started when the poor can no longer afford food and housing. Right. So they know that. So that's why they're getting ahead of the game. They're getting ahead of the game. right? So they're working on systems of control. What do you think? All this fake. See, don't you get every time something happens, who actually ultimately suffers? Like again, with gun control, there's a mass shooting. Who they take the guns away from? The law-abiding citizens, right? When there's a terrorist threat or terrorist bombing or something on an airplane, who has to now go through the long lines? Can't bring your soda that you just bought for $3 through the security checkpoint, and like, dang, I only took 2 sips because all these security regulations. Now you got to take your shoes off. Then they just pull you to the side for no reason, right? And then you got to get all this crazy search. Who suffers? The average Joe, the average person that's doing everything right, following the law, paying the taxes, but they always seem to come down on us. They're speeding, they put speed cameras. Who gets the tickets? Traffic light cameras. Who gets the tickets? You know what I mean? Like, we're trying to protect you. No, you're not. You're making money off us constantly. That's all it is. So they're putting all these systems of in place of control, facial recognition software that they're putting in the cameras. That's actually happening. They've been doing that for a while now in cities throughout the United States. They can instantly find you like that. I mean, you think that's good? Right. So eventually, like I said, when everybody sees what's happening, what the big Ponzi scheme that we've been living under and how they've stolen all the money through wealth transfers, there is going to be some type of revolution. But I don't know how good it's going to work because they were preparing for it while we were busy fighting over abortion, fighting over January 6th, fighting over Donald Trump, fighting over BLM and white nationalists, right? These things that really aren't important to us, they're not. Let the fringe people, let them fight. But us, level-headed folks in the middle, we got to come out more because we letting the extremities of each side kind of dictate things, right? And we have to come to the middle, come to some level, middle ground and be level-headed about all this and not be so left and so right. It's not too much of anything is never good, as they say. And we have to see what's really going on. Why are they pushing us to each side, to each extreme side? Why? Think about that. They're traumatizing the American people. Like I can see it in some of the comments that people make and why they believe some of the things they believe. I'm like, what? That doesn't make sense. Doesn't even make sense. It's just you're parroting talking points or buzzwords, but you're not really sure why. So we have to focus on what's really happening, what's really important, what's really going to impact us all, because when that economy crashes, none of us are going to care about the abortions. None of us are going to care about the BLMs and white nationalists. Not going to care about Donald Trump. We're not going to care about gun rights. We're going to be wondering how we're going to put food on the table, how we're going to keep this roof over our head. That's what we're going to worry about. How am I going to pay for this medical bill now that I don't have health insurance? And how can I find formula? Because you can't even find Infomil. You can have food shortages. Why do you think Bill Gates just recently bought up I don't know how millions of acres of a potato farm? These billionaires are buying up these farms. It's all over the paper. Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates. Why? You have to watch what they're doing, see what the moves they're making. That gives you a good insight on what's happening or what's going to happen. Right? Roe versus Wade being overturned will save more lives than COVID vaccines. Yeah, I guess that's true. Because it's true, the vaccines, and this is what a lot of people, again, are fighting over all of this stuff, but not reading the Pfizer reports that they released. So people are still continuing to get vaccines. People are still thinking it's okay, not realizing that the Pfizer reports, the reports that Pfizer themselves had to release because a court ordered them to. Otherwise, they would have waited 75 years like they wanted to tell you for themselves that they're super dangerous and they have a good chance of killing you. Yeah, a lot of people don't know. But a lot of people know that Roe versus Wade was overturned and they're pissed off about it. And is this a gay thing? Is this an LGBTQ community thing? Because it seems like a lot of the people that are highly upset are from the LGBTQ community. I see a lot of the rainbow flags when they're talking about Roe versus Wade. But I mean, two men, like a woman said to me as a man, I will never understand or be affected by abortion or the right, which I said that's not necessarily true because I was almost aborted. I was almost greatly affected by it. My mom had the right to do so here in the state of New York, and she almost took that, opted to choose to use that right, and almost not being. So yeah, right. And if you're two men, you're gay in a gay relationship, I guess it wouldn't apply to you, right? Is that what that person's saying? But there, many gay men out there, and one of them who's speaking out is former Councilman Michael Sabatino, current director of constituent services here of the city of Yonkers, who's speaking about the overturning of Roe versus Wade and the impact of it. But one woman said that, you don't understand, you don't run the risk of getting pregnant. The risk? What do you mean? The risk? Is it like dying? Dying is a risk. Getting pregnant is a risk. If if something's risky, then more than likely people don't do it, right? If it's something there's a risk, that's then you stay away from it. So if it's a risk, like she made it seem, then maybe people shouldn't be having sex if you look at it that way. So she said, you don't understand. It's a what do you mean by that? I don't understand. What do you mean by it's a risk? So anyway, former Councilman Michael Sabatino, former Yonkers council member, is concerned about what rights may be on the Supreme Court's chopping block following its decision to overturn Roe versus Wade. Justin Clarence Thomas wrote that the Supreme Court must revisit and overrule previous cases that legalize the right to contraception, same-sex intimacy, and same-sex marriages. That has former Yonkers council member Michael Sabatino worried. Sabatino and his husband, Robert Voorhees, have been together for 44 years and legally married for 19 of them. 44 years of love, devotion, and caring of each other, says Voorhees. The two were married in Canada. And congratulations, and much, success and well wishes to the two of you, Robert Voorhees. But you guys are doing very well, okay? You guys are doing a lot better than people who are not gay. People who are not gay and white. Those people that get privileges, the white people with white privileges. Well, you guys are doing even better than them here in the city of Yonkers. I'm just saying. And the LGBTQ community have done very well in terms of gaining their rights. I have some of the quickest of any group that have fought for equality in this country, I might add. Right? So he's concerned. What are you concerned about? That they're going to make, gay marriages illegal now and overturn that? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think that's scaring people. You're putting more fear out there and more, kind of just trying to make the Supreme Court look bad. And now people are, a lot of people starting bad things and negative things about the Supreme Court now. Right? And it seems like people who support this and other things like this, it's like they're one-sided. They're not fair. It's like if it's for them, then they support it. If it's not for them, then they're against it. Like you don't want guns. We don't want you to have the right, to have a gun, but you got to have the right to have an abortion. You could have that. That's not fair. You can't say one person can have rights for certain things, but you can't have rights for other. You have to support it across the board. Right? You have to support it across the board. And we have to respect the Supreme Court's justice decision and not allow the media and people to start to badmouth them or taint our Supreme Court because they don't like the decision. That's your opinion. That's just your opinion, and that's it. Americans need to wake up and vote. Right. And that's, again, ultimately, bottom line, 43 minutes. I'm going to get out of here. What I'm going to leave you with, whatever side of this argument you stand on, ultimately complaining, yelling, criticizing, and insulting people who have a difference of opinion does very little. Going out there, being involved, getting involved, educating yourself on all the issues, getting involved politically and in your community, that's what makes a difference. That's what makes an impact. So if you're not doing that, then nothing you say on Facebook is credible to me. I like people who actually get out there and don't just talk about it, but be about it. So again, whichever side of this argument you stand on, as long as you're out there truly fighting for it and specifically voting to make a difference, then I respect it. I have no issues. Again, I don't have any issues with women having the right to have an abortion at all. I don't think it's my business, and I do believe that that is their right, regardless of whether or not I agree with it. And it doesn't matter. But I'm just saying, we should always respect everyone's opinion, regardless. We all have rights. We have a right to be respected. I'm Freddy Vazquez. Have a great night. Thank you, Yonkers, for joining me. Happy Sunday. Car show was great. I had a great time. Shout out to the Rotary Club again. That was amazing. Let's continue to do it. I have fun. And hopefully the day won't be so hot. It was super hot. My son didn't want to stay too long, so I ended up leaving a little bit early, but I did come back for a little bit. Then I left. It was very brutal out there. But folks, anyway, enjoy your week. God bless. I'm Freddy Vazquez. Have a great night. Thank you. I'm buying again.
Freddy wins. Fatality. Freddy wins. Fatality.
I am Freddy Vazquez. This is Basement Politics Unfiltered. Thank you, folks, for joining me tonight. As always, I appreciate your support, and I respect all your opinions. I give mine, but it is just that, an opinion. However, it is always important to respect everyone's opinion, regardless of what that opinion is. And I'm here to mostly encourage people to get involved and vote, not to sway anyone to vote in any specific direction, but just to get out there and be involved. Just get the information, be informed, and whatever vote you decide, that's your right, that's your decision, and I respect it. I'm Freddy Vazquez. Peace out, folks. Oh, by the way, is it? I heard that they were not allowing some people over at the Will Library on Central Avenue to vote because they weren't wearing masks. That could be kind of considered like some form of voter suppression, maybe. What if somebody doesn't have a mask, somebody doesn't want to, and then they walk away because they're not going to wear the mask. They have a strong belief in not wearing the mask. And now that's a vote that was not, made because of that. Right? If you want to allow people to vote without IDs, you should be able to allow people to vote without masks. Folks over at the Will Library, get it together, because there is no law stating that you have to wear a mask. Get it together, because you can mess up the voting over there. I'm Freddy Vazquez. Have a good night. Just had to mention that because, got to always keep an eye on them. Got to keep an eye on them.